Hello, just very quickly, I thought I'd just make a quick video for 2026 on tanks you should be using for maneuvers, just because some people were asking in my Twitch chat and I think in maybe YouTube comments. First is WZ Light Tank. It's playable. It's not great. Yeah, it's just I mean, after the buff in 2.0, it's like okay now, but yeah, it's still not great, and there's much better light tanks to play. 1-to-1, I think it's pretty decent, to be honest. I don't think I have any really complaints other than the gun depression, but it's playable still, or decent, with the DPM, and the armor's decent enough. 1-to-1B is basically the same, but obviously less alpha. 113 I think is playable. I personally hate this tank, so I will put it. I'm very tempted to put it into a void, but because it's just a heavy tank that is maneuverable and has good armor, it will keep in the playable category. Technically, it probably might be indecent, but the gun handling for me just makes it terrible. So I'm just going to put it in playable. The 5A, we will put in decent. I mean, you could maybe even put it into pro, actually. Yeah, let's put it into pro. Fuck it. Yeah, it's just a very nice tank. Obviously, the DPM's very nice. The armor is iffy, but it still works in hold down. Obviously, if you don't just sit still and let them shoot you cupola, but yeah, it's just a very nice tank. We'll go for all the heavy tanks first. WZ, Pro, IMO, just a very good tank at the moment. Obviously on maps like Karelia or whatever, if you're for some reason sending him south, like around the hill, then obviously he's going to run out of boosters and then he won't be a very good tank. But, you know, if you play him to his strengths, or the tank to its strengths, it'll work out for you. BZ, I would say just one less. It has a less health than this thing, so it can't just kind of use brute force to push something, but still obviously very helpful to have, especially if you somehow get it onto Cliff. WZ, probably, I mean, it's probably playable to decent. It's up to you how you want to view it. I mean, I put it in playable because just I don't think turretless TDs are that good, but obviously still pretty playable. 114. I mean, I would say it's either playable or void. I mean, I don't like really sniping tanks in maneuvers, so I'm just gonna put it into a void. But it's still definitely playable if you have one. But obviously, for a most meta or a meta subject, you wouldn't be taking a TD. Tessac, I would say decent. I would put it above a WZ. It has pretty good damage output. Obviously, can still scout. Yeah, it's a good tank. TVP, I think it's well, no, it's not. That's not a TVP in. TVP, I think it's playable. I don't think it's very good anymore. TVP, the heat pen kind of sucks ass. Obviously, it has no armor. The camo's not really that good either, so you can't really use it as a scouting tank if you're getting, well, as long as you're not desperate. But yeah, I'm not really a fan of the TVP, so it'll stay in playable. VZ, I mean, you could put it in pro now. Honestly, after they buff the gun now, it's actually very nice. So I'll put it in pro actually. Yeah, a very nice tank. I mean, obviously the tank next coming up is much better than it, but I still think the VZ is pretty on par to a 5A. Traffic, obviously, it's probably the best tank in the game right now. Yeah, or tier 10 anyway. Yeah, I would probably say so. Dravik's probably the best tank at tier 10 at the moment, and yeah, this reflects that. DVP, I put it above the 114 just because it's more mobile, has an even more punchy gun, so yeah, I'd put it up there. EBR, I put it into pro. Obviously, there is nothing really better than an EBR at scouting, so yeah, and you can just win games off having an EBR and the enemy team does not. AMX, would I put it in decent? I'll put it in playable. I'd rather play a Tassac over than an AMX, but still, it's like up to your preference technically what you put it into this. But I'll put it in playable for now. Batjet, I'll put it into pro. It's just very mobile. You can use it as a replacement for a CS if you don't have any left. Has good damage output for that 10 seconds or however long it takes to unload. But you know the reload is not awful. So. 30B, playable. Obviously a mobile medium tank, but other than that, pretty shocking, I would say. Kind of the same kind of thing as TVP. It's big, has bad pen, not great. 50p, I would put into decent. Obviously, I mean, it's kind of hard to play it by itself. Or if you have like double 50B or something, it can cause some issues, but by itself or in a group of like six um, of them, you can do lots of bad things in them. AMX, I'd put in decent again, even though it got nerfed ages ago, or was it like 2 or 3 years ago? It's still a pretty decent tank now. Obviously has okay turret armor, obviously, other than the cupola, and sometimes the mantlet can be penned by good pen rounds, but it's kind of tall, which helps it in some situations. The frontal armor's pretty good. The gun's pretty nice, I would say, as well. Decent tank. We'll say this is the Foch 155, so we'll put it into a void. Yeah, I mean, the reload's just so long for the unload speed is pretty bad as well. You have the pen that's nice. You can do some funny things with the HE, but competitively, not very good. Foch B, I put into decent for now. Needs to be played quite well to make work. Obviously, it's not like Onslaught where you can just, heal back all your health, but it can just blow up a tank if you catch him off guard. Alright, Shem, I put it into Pro. I mean, I'm personally not like that big of a fan using light tanks, as I think medium tanks are just better, or like CSs or Batchats I think are better than light tanks, but obviously an RHM is still very nice to have. You have that camo rating that you can use, as well as, the view range, which is kind of nice as well. Leo, I'll put it into decent. You could put it into Pro technically, probably, but because it has no armor, it can just be blown up very quickly, and if it gets caught out, so I'll put it into decent. E50M, I'm almost tempted to put this into Pro after they buffed it from 2.0. Is it 2.0? I think they buffed it in 2.0. Anyway, so I'm very tempted to put this into Pro, and I think I will. The armor is just very nice. It has decent turret armor. Speed's good. Ramming obviously is very nice. Yeah, I mean, I can't really complain about an E50M. KPZ, I'd put into decent. It's still a pretty good tank. Kind of like underrated a little bit, I feel, but I think the turret armor kind of lets it down. If it's playing against, things with penetration, they can just pen its turret on the cheeks, so not that good. Mouse, I would say decent. Again, one of them. If you have only one of them in your team, they can just, hold a flank by themselves for a long time. But obviously, if you get a map like Karelia or maybe Pearl River, it can be kind of difficult to play with. Panzer 7, I'd say playable. I still think it's a pretty decent tank overall for randoms, but maneuvers, it is kind of just slow and the armor kind of lets it down. If you're playing against a decent player, they will know your weak spots, on the under the turret ring or the side of it and the lower plate, obviously. So the armor is just not reliable enough, I feel, to play. U100, I'd say same as kind of Mouse. Obviously, the lower plate's a lot easier to pen, but that DPM, bit of speed increase, it's very nice to have. BKK, I would probably put it into decent. I mean, obviously it has the same kind of armor layout as the Panzer 7, but obviously it's better. And the gun is less, or it's more derpy than the Panzer 7, but overall I think the tank is pretty good. Though I would still put it below a mouse and an E100. I'd rather much have in my team a mouse or an E100. Grill, I put in a void. IMO, I just don't think it's very good, honestly. I know Onslaught, when you're slapping people for 1,000, pretty good. Maneuvers, when it gets spotted at 445 meters view range by something, it just blows up, right? Jaegeru, it's probably playable, but for me, I'd put it into a void. I don't like these fat TDs walking around, so I'll keep it there for now. Progetto, I mean, the DPM is just fucking terrible, so I'll just put it into a void, honestly. It's probably playable, really, because it is a medium tank, it has speed, the armor's kind of troll at times. It's probably playable, but for me, I'm just going to put it into a void. Lion, I would say this is decent. DPM's pretty good if you're using your shells correctly. Yeah, nice gun. Turret armor's kind of bouncy at times. Pretty decent. Crocodillo, probably the same thing. Yeah, I mean, just hold down potential, obviously. Has decent DPM. And yeah, I mean, the only thing is like it has very low hit points. Caro, I would say above the Progetto, because Progetto is poo, but obviously it still has the same problems. But at least the Caro has some turret armor, so it's playable. Rhino is kind of just the same. It has decent, okay turret armor. Obviously, you're not just standing still, very close range, but DPM is just horrible. So it could even go down to avoid, but you know, it's your choice, I guess. But I'll put it into playable for now. Minotauro, kind of just the same thing. Turret armor's, a bit worse from what it was, but still decent enough. Still playable like a heavy tank. Yeah, it's fine. STB, I would say playable. And personally, I don't really like this tank, but it's still decent enough. It has, the gun depression, which is kind of nice. Other than that, it's like it has good DPM, but other than that, yeah, I mean the turret armor is not reliable. It gets set on fire a lot. Everything else on the armor is very weak. So yeah, Type 21, I would say it's decent. Obviously, the mechanics kind of nice. If you're sniping at long range for that one shot at the start of the game, maybe. And after you get, close enough range, your gun is fine enough with the accuracy being a bit worse than what a normal heavy tank would be. Type 5, kind of the same as a mouse. Taking 1 is fine. Can hold a flank pretty easily. If you get onto mines or mines, you could probably just put him into mid and he holds for a while. Or you just push him around the hill and he can just dump into the team. If he's on Ensk or Himmel, he's very happy. It's a fine tank. Ashigaru, obviously playable. Obviously has no armor at all, so can be penned by HE a lot. The gun is pretty good though it has the annoying cooling mechanic, but I think it's playable just because it has a turret at least. But it is kind of slow, so do you want to have it as a sniper when it's that slow? Yeah, I don't know. Hori, I would say the same. It's a good TD, obviously, same as WZ, but is it slightly more mobile? Jesus, had a stroke. But yeah, I mean, good gun, obviously. Pen can just go through anything. It's a nice support tank. CS, obviously, is just it's probably the best medium tank for this mode. Yeah, just able to do everything like a light tank does. Well, 90% of what a light tank can do, and it has the much better gun. 60p, decent, even though the gun is horrible. Everything else about the tank is still very nice. Armor's good, health is good, turret armor's good. I don't know what else you want from a heavy tank. Pretty decent speed as well. So yeah, pretty good. Bliska, I want to put it in decent, but it's so annoying to play at times. It's so inconsistent. And I guess with the maps, if you get a map like Proco, I don't know what you do in this tank. You just have to go mid, I guess, and try and fight. But yeah, I don't know. Udez, I mean, I'd say decent. I guess I'd put it over an STB, so I will put it in decent. But yeah, gun is horrible. IMO, the shell velocity makes it terrible. I hate playing it. Kran, decent. I mean, very good turret armor, obviously. Obviously, everything about it else is weak. I mean, the gun is actually pretty good from what I've seen on recent, or watching some Kran gameplay on some people's YouTube and stuff. But, yeah. Stuff, I would say decent. Will I? Sure, I'll put it in decent. I mean, it's very mobile. It can snipe at the beginning of the game, but then it can kind of join the fight. Obviously, it can kind of blow up, but it has some type of armor at least. Manticore, I would say playable. DPM's horrible, obviously, but if you get a good map for it, it can do wonders for you. Concept 5, I'd put it in decent. I put Leo here, yeah. So I would put it equal to a Leo. I think it's pretty good. Obviously the DPM's a bit worse, but the gun's quite nice, punchy. The pen is nice as well now. Yeah, good tank. Vickers, I don't like the Vickers. but it is playable for sure. But it depends up to you. If you want to put it in decent, you probably can. But for me, I'll put it in playable. St. Axe, I would put in decent. I mean, it just has everything you want, kind of in a medium tank. Good gun, turret armor, good mobility. What more could you ask? Griffin, I would say kind of the same as Ascent. It has good gun. Armor's not amazing, but it can go, hold down. Mobility's good, gun's good. Yeah. FE215B, I mean, it's playable. DPM's quite nice. The gun is obviously very nice, but you get set on fire a lot. Speed is not great. You have no armor. Yeah, it's fine. S-Conk, I would say playable, even though the DPM's horrible now. It's still a decent tank anyway. Turret armor's good. Speed's not great. Gun's decent. Yeah. Chieftain, I would say it's better than an S-Conk and probably a Griffin. Even though the DPM is, again, not great, it's still playable, has good turret armor. Mobility's fine. Yeah. Turret armor is amazing as well. Can opener, I would say probably up here as well. I don't know if I put it over a Chief. Different play styles, I guess. Obviously, this tank is just insane and a hold down compared to a Chieftain, but the Chieftain has like a bit more mobility, so evens out. Badger, playable. Not again. I'm just not a fan of turretless TDs, but it's still playable, like a heavy tank, you know. FE both we'll just put into this because they're crap. Sheridan will put into playable. Obviously, just another light tank where it's trying to be a medium tank, but no, a medium tank is just better than it, so why take a Sheridan? Speaking of medium tanks, we go to Pattern, which we'll put in decent. I don't really see a problem with the Pattern. Just everything is good, I would say, about it. The only bad thing about it is maybe the speed, but I think it still goes like 50 with turbo, so not terrible. M60 we'll put in decent. I mean, obviously a more weakly armored version than a Pattern, but it's still good. The mobility is very nice. Gun's very nice. Yeah, no complaints. E6, I mean, you could probably put it into decent, but I'll just put it into playable. The gun just lets me down too many times, but the DPM is fantastic. But that's everything you need to know about an E6, basically. And you have no armor. Ares, I put it decent. I think even with the nerfs, I still think this is a fine tank. Obviously, you can still burst someone for basically 1,000. Yeah, you can burst people for like 1,000 if you shoot right. And after that, you're reloaded to do it again in like 8 seconds, 10 seconds. So, yeah. But you have to make sure you don't overheat, because if you overheat, it becomes a crap tank. M5Y, I would say decent. Again, hull armor's not great. Turret armor is nice, but if you turn your turret any side, you get penned. But if you do get onto that ridgeline map, you're very set. MBTB, I mean, I kind of want to put it into decent, but I think it's so unreliable that I'll put it into playable. Because the 50B, at least, you reload in like 25 seconds or 23 or whatever. This is like, if you miss 2 shots in this, you're doing 100 basically a minute, so it's not great. TV7 Heavy, I put into decent. Obviously, it's not the fastest tank in the world, but, with that DPM, it is kind of crazy. But obviously, you need to play it with your friends, and you can't just send it to a position by itself, because, you have no hold-down capabilities. 5A, I'd probably put it into Pro. I think it's one of the best heavy tanks still in the game. Obviously, Dravik, and then some other tanks, but E5 is just such a nice DPM tank that you can't really go wrong with it. E4, I put it into decent. As a replacement heavy tank, pretty good. Nothing really wrong with it at all. Obviously, Cupola is not great to have, and the health is not great for a heavy tank, but it's still pretty good, and he will pen anything you shoot, basically. E3, it's just too slow. I mean, I would probably just put it into Avoid. It's just too slow for this game mode. Still, I mean, like, there are some maps where it will be fine, but I think it's so unreliable. Unless you're down to very few tanks left, I wouldn't pick this tank. LT, I mean, probably decent. I think I would put it above a WZ. Maybe not an AMX, maybe, but I'd put it over a Manticore for this game mode. You need a bit of gun to actually play the video game. But, other than that, it's a decent light tank and has a bit of a okay gun to, fall back on if needed. 140, I mean, after the buff, I think this tank is very good. So I think there's no other place really to put it. Probably like the second best medium tank right now, honestly. It'd probably be like CS 140 E50M, probably. 9.0, I would not say it's as good as a 140, but I would put it into decent still. It's probably, on the upper end of decent, but I can't be bothered sorting these things out. But just a nice medium tank for now. And, you can do some funny things with 7 of them and just YOLOing a flank. ST62 V2, whatever it's called. The reward tank, again, good tank. Quite nice to use as well with a 3-shot autoloader and then reverse autoloader, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, just a nice tank. T22 medium, I mean, the armor's decent, but again, the gun just is kind of poo. And the armor, if you're playing against good people, won't work. So, yeah. 430U, I think it's kind of the same kind of deal. The gun is horrible. Hull armor is decent. Turret armor's good as well, but most of the time you're not going to be able to go a hull down because you're not having enough gun depression. So, yeah. Can anyone? I don't know, actually. I'll put it into, I think, playable. 320 in this meta is pretty terrible, but it's still a decent medium tank. Other than that, T62A, it's just a trash tank. Please buff it, Wargaming. Why would you ever play this thing when a 140 exists? IS-4, decent. I think this is quite a slept-on heavy tank. Very good health. Gun's pretty poo, but at least you have pen or penetration. I think it's like, what is it, 340 or 330? I think it's 340 pen with heat anyway. 260, obviously pro. Yeah, I mean, it's just a fast, heavy tank, which is what you want for this game mode. So how can you not like a 260? 705A, probably playable. It's not great, but it's good enough for what a heavy tank is meant to probably be in this mode. Obviously, the gun depression sucks, and the gun sucks, but armor's just insane if you get it into the right scenario. 277, I could say pro. It could be very decent. That would be on the upper end of decent. I'll put it into decent. I'd rather play 260 than 277, but yeah. 279, I put it into pro. I think the armor is just very nice to have. Gun is still, like, obviously the DPM is pretty poo now, but, the armor is very nice. The gun is still, I feel like, pretty nice when you're actually aimed in. But other than that, can't really complain. ST, playable. Yeah, I don't see why you'd want to play this tank, to be honest. But, if you're down to your last heavy tanks, it's fine for a heavy tank pick. 780, decent. You could put it into, like, a pro. But for now, I'll keep it in decent, but it's going to be high-end decent. I'll even put it all the way to the top. 452K, playable. I really dislike this tank. Unless you have it fully set up, you kind of need experimental HP for one, because it gets blown up and ammo racked and fuel tanked all the time in this tank. You then kind of need stabs because the gun is terrible, but then you also need turbo, so then you have no room for a gun rammer. So, yeah, I don't know. IS-7, I mean, pro. I mean, it's like next to probably the Dravik, really. Yeah, it's just meta at the moment. V4, playable. It's not bad, but health is low. If you get double tracked, you're dead. Weak spots, yeah, not great. 268, I'd say playable. I'm really just not a fan of turreted TDs, turretless TDs. But it's still a good tank. Obviously fast enough. Armor's not great, but you have very good pen with all your ammo types. It's a good TD, but I just don't like turretless TDs. Speaking of a turreted TD, though, this tank is ass, so it goes into a void. Yeah, but that is the list. I think I remembered every tank, so yeah, I think that's every tank. But let me know in the comments if I have forgotten a tank. But yeah, I will catch you in the next one, and good luck in maneuvers.